Prabhupada in Philadelphia was very happy with the Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. Did I tell you about Ravindra Swarup Prabhu? You heard about it?
What was the name?
Ravindra Swarup Prabhu.
I don't think so.
He was the temple president up until now, from 1970s to till now, of Philadelphia.
Okay.
He's the one. He did a very running for so long. Yeah, it says here Ravindra Swarup.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I recognize the name. Yeah.
I took a lot of his association from all my Krishna conscious career. Very, very knowledgeable person, devotee, scholar. So a human devotee asked Prabhupada a further question about the position of human. And he replied, of course, you are not a human. You are a devotee. So what happened is, if you remember, in Chicago, the situation, a kind of scene created, everybody becomes so negative about Prabhupada's human position, about the human in society, Prabhupada's statement. So when Prabhupada came to Philadelphia, he was from Chicago to Philadelphia, he was also kind of bombarded with such kind of questions. So Prabhupada specified, everybody in spiritual, everyone is same. Material distinction, you cannot change it. Now, black, white, yellow, rich, poor, they all will remain. Man, human, they all will remain. It's not that, but in spiritual, everybody is same. So human devotee asked Prabhupada a further question about the position of human. And he replied, of course, you are not a human, you are a devotee. So Prabhupada agreed to see several professor acquaintances of Ravindra Swarups. Having received his BA in philosophy from University of Pennsylvania and his MA from Temple University, Ravindra Swarup was now pursuing a PhD from Temple. He had once given up academic as part of the world of Maya and had finally engaged in Krishna consciousness, but Prabhupada had encouraged him to return for a further degree. While in Philadelphia, Srila Prabhupada had spoken out against the process of inductive reasoning. On one morning walk, Ravindra Swarup had said, Prabhupada, the same criticism that you just made of induction was also made by John Stuart Mill and Bertrand Russell, but they become skeptics. They say, therefore, there is no knowledge at all. That is another nonsense, Srila Prabhupada replied. That is also speculation, because I have failed, therefore there is no knowledge. Dr. Yogesh Patel, a Western-educated Indian-born scholar of Buddhism and Mayavad Hinduism, taught in the religion department of Temple University. Accompanied by two graduate students, Dr. Patel dropped by one afternoon while Srila Prabhupada was talking in his room with several of his disciples. Ravindra Swarup made the introductions. Prabhupada, so you are teaching Hinduism? Dr. Patel, yes. Prabhupada, what is that Hinduism? Dr. Patel, I don't know. You tell me what is Hinduism is. Prabhupada, you don't know? You are teaching Hinduism, but you don't know what it is. This is our Dr. Swarup Damodar. He is also a PhD. Let us get his opinion on this. Turning to Swarup Damodar, what do you think of that? He is teaching, but he does not know. Swarup Damodar, cheater. Cheater, Prabhupada, that is called cheater. Prabhupada, so you have heard his judgment that you are a cheater? Dr. Patel became angry and raised his voice at Srila Prabhupada. The professor and Srila Prabhupada were immediately into a battle. Dr. Patel, you teach me? If I say I don't know what is religion, then you teach me. Prabhupada, a spiritual master is not your servant. You must become shaven-headed like my students. Then I will teach you. You have to offer your obeisance to surrender to the spiritual master. Then he will reveal the truth. Dr. Patel replied that he did offer his obeisances to Srila Prabhupada when he first entered the room. Prabhupada, then my first instruction to you is to stop this cheating. But now both Srila Prabhupada and Dr. Patel were speaking with raised voices. Most of the devotees were shocked, speechless. Some of them, like Brahmananda Swami, felt compelled to somehow end the meeting. Prabhupada, you asked me what is religion. My reply is Sarvadharman Parityaja. Krishna says religion means Saranam Braja, fully surrender. Dr. Patel, what do you mean by fully surrender? Prabhupada, you don't know the meaning of surrender? Give me a dictionary, let us see. Dr. Patel yelling, no, I want the Sanskrit etymological meaning of surrender. Prabhupada, you don't want a spiritual master, you want a Sanskrit teacher? We cannot waste our time anymore. Brahmananda Swami saw that this as his cue. He leaned over to Dr. Patel and asked him to leave. Before you get offensive, Dr. Patel and Brahmananda Swami then rose and left the room together. Srila Prabhupada remained shaking with anger. The senior devotees looked over at Ravindra Prabhu reproachfully. How could he bring such a man to see Srila Prabhupada? Ravindra was appalled and frightened. Never before had anyone seen Prabhupada explode with such anger. After staying up all night, Ravindra Swarup approached Prabhupada the next morning with a prepared apology. Srila Prabhupada, he began, I'm really sorry that I brought that professor to see you last night. I had no idea he was such a rascal. Srila Prabhupada looked up in uprise. He said, that's all right. That's all right. He paused and then he added with quiet satisfaction, at least he was chastised. So now, Ravindra Prabhu, he was, he after joining Krishna conscious movement, he gave up the studies and joined full time the movement. Now he joined full time, but later Prabhupada asked him, why he should pursue his PhD. Because Prabhupada saw there's a potential if he studies the PhD and still Krishna consciousness, then he may have a good impact. So he would introduce with few professors, and he did his MA and having received BA and an MA in philosophy, he did. Now it is PhD in Temple. So Ravindra Prabhu brought Professor Dr. Patel, and he's the teacher of Hindu philosophy, and somehow he was teaching actually Buddhism and Mayavad. At least he came to see Prabhupada. So as soon as he comes, Prabhupada is asking, challenging, so you're teaching Hinduism? What is Hinduism? He said, I don't know, you tell me. So you're teaching Hinduism, but how come you don't know? So then he showed to Swarup Damodar, what is your opinion? He's teaching Hinduism and he doesn't know what is Hinduism. So what is your opinion? Swarup Damodar, you know who is Swarup Damodar Prabhu? He's a scientist. He was a scientist, a very big scholar. He's a lot of wonderful disciples he made. He wrote several books also. He challenged the scientific world. So he said that it's simply cheating. They're called cheaters. So Prabhupada said, did you see his judgment? Is cheater? Dr. Patel became very angry, and then there's heated conversation. He said, argument. So Prabhupada's point is, okay, you're arguing, but you're asking, I'm not your servant. Spiritual master is not servant. You have to submissively inquire if you want to know. So, okay, this be humility. Then only the knowledge can come. So there's heated discussion. He didn't raise. So Ravindra, it arranged that. Brahmananda Prabhu arranged that he should leave so he don't commit offenses. So Dr. Patel left. But next day, it was surprised that Ravindra Prabhu brought this professor not knowing. He was feeling kind of a little guilty. So he said, Prabhupada, I'm sorry that I brought him. I didn't know he got into this discussion. Prabhupada said, no, that's all right. but at least he was chastised. AJ? Dr. Thomas Hopkins.
Dr. Thomas Hopkins, another teacher of Hinduism, came to see Prabhupada, but in a much different mood. From the beginning, they experienced an immediate rapport. Dr. Hopkins asked Prabhupada the relationship of Bhagavad Gita to Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada replied that the Bhagavatam was like the graduate study of the Gita, beginning where the Gita left off. Dr. Hopkins, if someone was going to collect a very small section of your work, say 1 or 2 verses, what would you want them to collect? That is stated in 2 verses, Prabhupada replied. Dharmasya hai aparvargasya. And he had the translation read, all occupational engagements, dharmas, are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service, dharma, should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Prabhupada had the purport read, and he expanded on it further, explaining how people are only after material gain, neglecting the real purpose of life. Dr. Hopkins, do you think then that this message is the most important message that you have to convey? Prabhupada, that is the most important message because you are not this material body. Suppose you have got this shirt. So if you simply try to maintain this shirt, is this a very good intelligence without taking care of your person? Similarly, we are spirit soul, and the body is just like a dress. So in the whole material world, everyone is engaged to take care of the body. Nobody knows what is spirit soul, what is his need. Dr. Hopkins seemed pleased to hear such a broad explanation of Vaishnavism. When he asked about Shiva, Prabhupada explained that although Lord Shiva could not be considered equal to Lord Vishnu, he was the best Vaishnava, the chief devotee of Vishnu, and he could be worshipped as such. And Lord Rama? Srila Prabhupada explained that Rama was an incarnation of Krishna. Professor Hopkins was pleased to hear this. Prabhupada explained that Madhava, Ramanuja, and Vishnu Swami were all big acharyas. Dr. Hopkins then asked about Tukarama, the saint of Maharashtra. Prabhupada, yes, Tukarama accepted Vishnu as supreme. He accepted the process of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sankirtan, and he accepted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his guru. So there is no difference between Tukarama and Chaitanya. Dr. Hopkins, so Lord Vitala and Krishna are the same. Prabhupada, Lord Vitala is Vishnu. Dr. Hopkins, and the Alvars of Tamil Nadu, Adivasi, you accept their teachings also. So the real question is between Vaishnava and others. Prabhupada, yes, that is the question. Vaishnava or non-Vaishnava. The actual difference is personalist and impersonalist. Dr. Hopkins, you would see the worshippers of Shiva as impersonalist. Prabhupada, yes, impersonalist. Sankaracharya said that ultimately the absolute truth is impersonal, and one can imagine a personal form for the benefit of the worshipper. When Dr. Hopkins pointed out that some of the Shiva worshippers seemed to be personalists, Prabhupada explained the real mentality of the Shivites, according to Sankara. Now I am a devotee, said Prabhupada, but as soon as I become perfect, I become one. That is their theory. In the preliminary state, when I am not perfect, I am worshiping some imaginary form of God. But when I become perfect, there is no need of worshiping, I become one. As a scholar, Dr. Hopkins was visibly pleased to hear the authentic philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Prabhupada mentioned the Smarta Brahmas as also being impersonalists, Dr. Hopkins was surprised. It would be very difficult to pick them out, said Prabhupada. Most of the so-called Vaishnavas are impersonalists. Dr. Hopkins, so the deciding test as to whether one is a serious devotee or not is not only whether one is devoted now, but what he sees the goal as but that he sees the goal as perpetual devotion. Prabhupada, yes, he is Nitya Yukta. That means perpetually. That's a lot. So you know,
you can close your eyes and explain.
Just do like this. This professor is meeting with Prabhupada, and he was a teacher of Hinduism, Dr. Hopkins.
By the way, he's the one I think must have given the review in Bhagavad Gita, right? I think Bhagavad Gita, Dr. Thomas Hopkins also review is there. Yeah.
Yeah. So he, you know, and this I guess instead of the other fellow he met with, Dr. Hopkins and Prabhupada kind of hit it off immediately. And, so he began with saying, hey, where does the Gita fall in with Srimad Bhagavatam? And Prabhupada tells him, like, Bhagavatam picks up where the Gita left off, right? And it's like the graduate study. It takes your education about Krishna even further. And then he says, well, what's the most important message? Like, what's your takeaway that if you could only give people, a couple verses, what would it be? So Prabhupada says, all occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation, and they should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service, dharma, should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. And then, he read the purport and said, like, look, this is, if you're only after material gain, you're missing out on the main purpose. And Dr. Hopkins says, so that's it. That's the most important thing. He says, yep. Prabhupada goes, yep, because you're not this body, right? You're not the material body. And so, if you're working towards, if everything you do is working towards maintaining that material body and not addressing the soul, then you're addressing spirit soul, then there's no point. You're just wasting time, essentially. And he gives it, the analogy of, like, if you just spend all your time taking care of your clothing and not taking care of yourself, what's the point of that? He then asked about Shiva and where he kind of where Shiva lands in the grand scheme of things. And he says, he's not considered equal to Vishnu, but he was, the greatest of Vaishnavas because of his he was the main devotee of Vishnu. And therefore you can worship him. And he says, he explains Lord Rama was an incarnation of Krishna. And then he asks about Tukarama, who I don't know about Tukarama, but he says, yep, Tukarama was...
Tukaram is a spiritual teacher, almost similar time, from the Maharashtra, the Bombay province, that area.
Okay.
And that's why he's a great devotee. And it says that Tukaram has got initiation from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
So he's a kind of a disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah. So, he says, since Tukarama's spiritual master was Chaitanya, therefore there's no difference between the two. And he asks about Lord Vitala and says that's Vishnu. He's not the same as, or yes, is that the same as Krishna? And then he goes through a couple other things and begins talking about, how there's the difference between Vaishnavas and non-Vaishnavas is Vaishnavas are personalists and non-Vaishnavas tend to be impersonalist. And he wants to know if, do you believe that Shiva worshippers are impersonalists? And he explains that Sankacharya said, that, let's say that the absolute truth is impersonal, and one can imagine a personal form for the benefit of the worshiper. So he's saying, based off of that, they don't believe that.
I think till now people are bewildered by this statement.
Yeah,
everybody's God. You just create your own. You can chant some sound, or you can worship one object. I mean, what kind of philosophy it is?
Like God's, God can be whatever you want it to be, right? And then he says, so else, Dr. Hopkins says, well, some Shiva worshippers are personalists, and then Prabhupada says, well, they believe that they become one with God eventually, and he says that because of that, they're making up some imaginary form, and once they've perfected life, then there's no need to worship anymore because they become one with Shiva. And as this whole conversation goes on, Dr. Hopkins is just very happy about it. It's because I guess they're just on the same page, and Prabhupada's giving them very straightforward, authentic philosophical answers. That follow back to Lord Chaitanya. And then he says the Smarta Brahmanas were impersonalists, and that surprised him. But he says most, says most of those so-called Vaishnavas are impersonalists. And he said, and I think that the big takeaway there, right, of this is that the test of whether one is a serious devotee or not is not only if they're devoted now, but if the goal is perpetual devotion. So it's not a short-term thing. There is no goal of, I mean, it's not like, oh, if I do this for 5 years or I do this for 10 years, then I achieve this and then I could stop. It's, the goal is to ever be in devotion of Krishna. And then Prabhupada says, yep, you got it.
Vijayanand Prabhu?
Dr. Hopkins, so the deciding test, okay, I think that Dr. Hopkins, considering this criterion, inquired about the position of Sri Aurobindo, who seemed to be beyond impersonalism. Prabhupada agreed. He says that above the Maya of the philosophy, there is something else. Prabhupada explained. That is bhakti. But Aurobindo could not understand because he did not take education from realized persons. He wanted to realize by himself. Dr. Hopkins. So his problem was the effort to do this on his own. Prabhupada, yes, he did not go through Guru Parampara, therefore it will take a long time. Dr. Hopkins finally had to leave and thanked Prabhupada for his time and wisdom. Why didn't you join us also? Asked Prabhupada. The whole human society should join us. Dr. Hopkins replied that he had been a friend of the devotees for many years and suspected that in the end he might end up as a sannyasi. Prabhupada pointed out that sannyasa doesn't mean a change of dress, but rather giving everything to Krishna. July 15, 1975. Srila Prabhupada had a direct flight from Philadelphia to San Francisco. He and Upendra sat in the first class section, while Brahmananda Swami, Harikesha, and Pradyumna traveled economy class. Vishaka Devi Dasi had also come to photograph Srila Prabhupada. After the plane had reached cruising altitude, a uniformed gentleman emerged from the cabin. Immediately he caught sight of Srila Prabhupada sitting by the window and walked over. When he leaned over and asked Prabhupada how he was, Prabhupada saw the man wanted to talk. So he asked Upendra to get up and give the gentleman his seat. You are the captain? Prabhupada surmised. No, the man replied. I am a flight supervisor. Come to overlook the pilot and the crew. Would it be all right if I asked you a philosophical question? Prabhupada nodded, apparently pleased. Is everything created by God? Srila Prabhupada said yes and quoted the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadi Asya Yataha. Everything in existence, Prabhupada said, has its origin in God. Then what is evil? The flight supervisor asked. Is evil also God's creation? For God, there is not good or evil. Prabhupada explained. Everything is good. Goodness is God's frontage and evil is God's back portion. Taking this example, the chest or the back of the body are equal. It is not that when there is some pain in the backside, I don't care for it. I simply take care of it when there is a pain in the chest. No. Although it is the backside, it is also important as the front side. So evil and good are also of the same importance. No. For God, there is nothing evil, just like for the sun, there is no darkness. For us, there is light and darkness. If you keep your back to the sun, you will find darkness. And if you face the sun, then there is no darkness. We create darkness as soon as we change our position. If instead of remaining in front of God, I keep God on the back, then there is darkness. Otherwise, there is no question of darkness. But in the sun, as it is, there is no such darkness. Therefore, God is all good. But for us, when we forget God, that is evil. And when we are in the God consciousness always, then everything is good. Is that all right? The man seemed to understand and respectfully accepted the answer. He was about to ask another question when a well-dressed but somewhat drunken passenger came up to them and spoke. Srila Prabhupada looked up at the man and asked, Are you afraid of death? The intoxicated man stammered, sobered, and walked away. The flight supervisor inquired again. Taking his meeting with Srila Prabhupada as a rare opportunity, can you tell me how one can become peaceful? He asked. Srila Prabhupada began quoting Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yachna Tapasham, and signaling Vishaka asked for a copy of the Gita. The devotees quickly consulted, but no one had a Bhagavad Gita. When Prabhupada heard this, he became angry. Although containing his feelings in the presence of his guest, he then explained to a man that One had to have knowledge of God as the supreme controller, the supreme enjoyer, and the best friend of everyone. Only then could one have peace. Out of foolishness, Prabhupada said, we are claiming the land is our property, therefore there is no peace, but actually God is the proprietor. So here it continues with the conversation between Dr. Hopkins and Prabhupada. So Dr. Hopkins inquired about the position of Sri Aurobindo, who seemed to be beyond impersonalism, and Prabhupada agreed to that. And Prabhupada mentioned that above the Mayada philosophy, there is something else. And Prabhupada explained that that is bhakti, but Aurobindo could not understand. And the reason is he did not took the education from the realized person. He wanted to realize by himself. So Dr. Hopkins replied, so his problem was like he took his effort to learn on his own. And Prabhupada replied, yes, yes, Aurobindo did not go through Guru Parampara, and so it will take a long time for Aurobindo to understand. And Dr. Hopkins finally had to leave, and he thanked Prabhupada for the time and the wisdom he shared with him. And Prabhupada asked him if why don't he join with them, and Prabhupada mentioned that the whole human society should join them. And Hopkins replied that he had been a friend of all the devotees for many years, and he suspected that he may end up as a sannyasi. And Prabhupada said that sannyasa did not mean a change of dress, but it's an attitude of giving everything to Krishna. And so Prabhupada had traveled from Philadelphia to San Francisco in a direct flight. So he and Upendra was traveling the first class section, and Brahmananda, Harikesha, and Pradyumna were traveling the economic class. And because Visakha Devi had also came to photograph Srila Prabhupada. And after the plane had reached the cruising altitude, an uniformed gentleman came from the cabin, and after seeing the sight of Prabhupada sitting by the window, and he walked over, and the gentleman asked Prabhupada how he was, and Prabhupada saw that the man wanted to talk, so he asked Upendra to get up and give the gentleman a seat. And Prabhupada inquired that person if he was the captain, and the man replied that he was a flight supervisor, and he came to overlook the pilot and the crew. And so the man asked Prabhupada if he can ask a philosophical question, and Prabhupada nodded for that, and the man started to ask questions to the Prabhupada. So he asked Prabhupada if everything is created by the God, and Prabhupada replied that yes, and he gave a quote on Vedanta Sutra, and Prabhupada said that everything has its origin in God. And then the man asked, what is evil? So also he asked if evil is also God's creation. And Prabhupada explained that for God, there is nothing called good or evil. Everything is good. So goodness is God's front edge, and evil is God's back portion. So also he given another example, like the chest or the back of the body are equally important, and it's not that there is some pain in the backside and we don't care for it. So the same importance is given whether the pain is in the chest or in the back. Like both are given the equal importance. So for this, the flight supervisor, he asked if evil and good are of the same importance, and Prabhupada mentioned that for God there is nothing evil. Just like for the sun there is no darkness, but it is for the people, like there is a light and darkness. And he gave another analogy here, like if we keep our back to the sun, then we will find darkness, and if we face the sun, there will not be darkness. So we create darkness as soon as we change the position. So instead of remaining in front of the God, if one goes to the back, then there is darkness. Otherwise, there is no question of darkness. So and when sun is present, there is no such darkness. So therefore God is all good. But for us, like if we forget the God, then that is evil. And when we are in God consciousness, always everything is good. So everything is good. And Prabhupada said if he's okay with the answer, and the man seems to understand all the answers from Prabhupada. And he was about to ask another question, but another drunken passenger came up to them, and spoke to them. And Prabhupada, after looking that person, he asked if he is afraid of death, and that intoxicated man like sobered and walked away. Um, and so the flight supervisor inquired him again, like considering the meeting of Prabhupada was a rare opportunity. He asked, like, how can a person can become peaceful? And for that, Prabhupada quoted a verse from Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Yajna Tapasham, and signaling Vishaka to have a copy of Gita, but none of the devotees did not have a Bhagavad Gita with them. And on hearing this, Prabhupada became angry, but before he just did not show his feelings in the presence of the guest. And then he explained to the man that one has to have the knowledge of God as the supreme controller, also the supreme enjoyer, and the best friend of everyone. Then only one can have peace. Out of foolishness, if we are claiming that land is our property, then there is no peace. Only God is the actual proprietor.
Thank you. Srikar, Prabhu.
Both Srila Prabhupada and flight supervisor enjoyed their talk, and as the flight supervisor excused himself, he heartily shook Prabhupada's hand. Prabhupada called for Pradyumna. His eyes glowing in transcendental anger, he reprimanded Upendra and Pradyumna for not having a copy of Bhagavad Gita. They should have one with them at all times. Pradyumna offered that although he did not have Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, he just happened to be carrying an edition by another author. This infuriated Prabhupada even more. He then ordered Upendra never to travel again without carrying three books, Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the first volume of Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Berkeley, July 15, 1975. Within less than 2 weeks, Prabhupada had travelled from West Coast to East Coast and back. This was his first visit to ISKCON Berkeley's recently acquired headquarters, a large church complex, and as usual, hundreds of devotees from many Western centers had converged to meet him. His arrival address specifically dealt with the position of the Guru. Only onto one with unflinching faith in Krishna and Guru, he explained, is the essence of Vedic wisdom revealed. Outsiders may think that Guru is very puffed up, said Prabhupada, and he is sitting and taking respect from the disciples. But the fact is that they are to be taught like that, how to offer respect to the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada repeatedly encountered this misunderstanding. A year ago in Paris, he had been heckled by radical students who envied his sitting on an elevated seat. And in America, the reporters often portrayed him as enjoying material comforts provided by his disciples. But Prabhupada maintained that despite a plethora of charlatans bringing disrepute to the word guru, anyone sincerely desiring to learn transcendental science had to go to a bona fide guru, the representative of God. A guru's business, said Srila Prabhupada, is to protect the subordinate disciples from fall down. Just like I'm traveling all over the world twice, thrice in a year, my duty is to see that my disciples who have accepted me as Guru may not fall down. That is my anxiety. Now, how can one become Guru and representative of Krishna? Everyone will say, I am representative of Krishna, I am Guru. No. The real thing is enunciated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who says, Amara Agya Guru Hana Tara E Desai. You just become Guru on my orders. So, Guru means he who is carrying out the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not self made Guru. Srila Prabhupada said that sometimes people gave him much credit for having done a wonderful thing for the whole world. But he confessed, I do not know that I am a wonderful man, but I know one thing, that I am speaking what Krishna has spoken. That's all. I am not making any addition or alteration. I am presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is. This credit I can take. So the Srila Prabhupada and flight supervisor, they both enjoyed the conversation, and then finally the flight supervisor, he excused himself, and then he left. He shook hands with Srila Prabhupada and then left. So after flight attendant left, Srila Prabhupada called Pradyumna and Upendra, and then he was like a little angry with them for not having a copy of Bhagavad Gita, not carrying a copy of Bhagavad Gita with them. And then he told them that they should always carry Bhagavad Gita with them all the times. And Pradyumna then says that, oh, he did not have Prabhupada's copy of Bhagavad Gita, but there was another Bhagavad Gita by another author. So when Srila Prabhupada heard this, he was even more angrier. Then he then ordered Upendra never to travel again without carrying three books. The one is Bhagavad Gita as it is, and then first volume of Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So in July of 1975, Prabhupada traveled from West Coast to East Coast and then again back. And then so again back to East Coast. So this was his first visit to back to West Coast. And then this was his first visit to ISKCON Berkeley's recently acquired headquarters, which was a very large church complex. And then there were many devotees from many Western centers came there to meet him. So his arrival address, specifically was the theme of his arrival address was around the position of the Guru. And then Srila Prabhupada explained that only one with unflinching faith in Krishna Guru, one can understand the Vedic wisdom. That's the only time when the Vedic wisdom can be revealed. So outside people may think that Guru is very puffed up. He's sitting and taking so much respect from his disciples, but the actual fact is that the Vedic knowledge needs to be learned that way from a bona fide Guru, and then one has to learn how to offer respect to a spiritual master. And then Srila Prabhupada, in the past, on many occasions, he encountered misunderstandings around Guru. Like just an year ago in Paris, there were some students who were like who were like kind of envious of Srila Prabhupada that he was sitting on an elevated seat. And in America, always the reporters used to portray that he's enjoying all the material comforts provided by his disciples. But despite of all these confusions, Srila Prabhupada, sincerely desired that, sincerely always taught that one can sincerely learn the transcendental science. One has to go to a bona fide guru, the representative of God. Srila Prabhupada says that a guru's business is to protect the subordinate disciples from falling down. And then he gave his own example, like how he's traveling all over the world twice, thrice in a year, and then his primary duty is to see that all his disciples may not fall down. And then so that is what is great anxiety. And then now Srila Prabhupada says how one can become a guru, a representative of Krishna. So like people in general may say that I am representative of Krishna, I am Krishna. No, that is not the real thing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that just one becomes guru just from by his order. So guru means he who is carrying out the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not self-made gurus.
Srila Prabhupada said that sometimes people gave him much credit for having done a wonderful thing for the whole world. But he confessed, I do not know that I am a wonderful man. But I know one thing, that I am speaking what Krishna has spoken. That's all. I am not making any addition or alteration. I am presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is. This credit I can take. Prabhupada continued to stress that the Guru must repeat the message of Krishna. If a so called Guru wanted to be a cheater, that was a different thing. There would always be cheaters and people who wanted to be cheated. Usually, such gurus cheated by accepting disciples without ordering them to stop sinful acts. If I say that you can do all nonsense, Prabhupada said, Simply take this mantra and give me $125. They will like. So I would have collected millions of dollars if I would have cheated like that. But I do not want that. I want one student who follows my instructions. I don't want millions. Ekas chandrastamo hanti nacha taraha sahasrasaha. If there is one moon in the sky, that is sufficient for illumination. There is no need of millions of stars. My position is that I want to see that at least one disciple has become a pure devotee. Of course, I have got many sincere and pure devotees. That is my good luck. But I would have been satisfied if I could find out only one. There is no need of millions of stars. Due to the zoning restrictions, the devotees were not allowed to use the Berkeley temple as a residence. But since no suitable rooms were immediately available in the neighborhood, the devotees decided to accommodate Srila Prabhupada and his personal staff in the temple for few days of his visit, hoping the authorities wouldn't find out. But on first night at 2 a.m., the police came by to check. Srila Prabhupada was already up, working at his Bhagavatam translation, when the police knocked loudly on the outside door near his room. Young Mike, who was to receive initiation in a few days, had been posted as a guard. He opened the door and three flashlights shone into his face. The officers entered and showed their credentials. You're not supposed to be sleeping in here, one of them said roughly. I wasn't, said Mike. Come on, we saw you in your sleeping bag. No, Mike protested. I was just lying there because I'm guarding my spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada could easily hear the disturbance just outside his room. Other devotees who were spending the night in the building with Prabhupada came out of their rooms and tried reasoning with the officers about the special occasion of the spiritual master's visit. One of the policemen began roaming around, checking in corners with his flashlight, opening doors. Now, all the devotees in the building, about half a dozen, were standing with the policemen in the hall outside Prabhupada's room. Oh, where's the. I'll.
I thought you can summarize whole. That's why I was continuing.
Uh, so, um, so, Prabhupada says that sometimes people give him more credit for having done wonderful thing for the whole world, but he can confess that he did not know that he's a wonderful man, but he knows one thing, that he's speaking what Krishna has spoken. That's it, and he's not making any addition or alteration to that. So he also said that he's presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is. So for that he can take the credit. And Prabhupada also continued to stress that Guru must repeat the message of Krishna. And if the Guru want to be a cheater, then it was a different thing. So and such gurus, they generally speak all nonsense. And Prabhupada said that if he was doing that, then he would give this mantra. I mean, he would give the mantra to the people and ask them $125, and by now he would have collected millions of dollars. But he didn't want to cheat like that. He wanted just one devotee who is very pure, but he says that he is very lucky to have many sincere and pure devotees. Um, so he gives a example of one moon in the sky, which is sufficient for illumination, and there is no need of millions of stars. And
Chanakya Pandit's statement. Ekas chandrastamo hanti na chataraha sahasrasaha. One moon is enough.
yes,
Sometimes the point why it was saying, anyone understand why it is being said? Because many times you have a so big crowd. Now so many people are there, but not properly practiced. So That's the challenge when it's better to have at least one, but you have so many, but not qualified. Hmm.
Yes.
That line before where he's saying like take this mantra and give me 125. That's in that, if you're familiar with transcendental meditation, like that movement, TM, that's kind of their rep. You meet with a guru who you pay money to, and he gives you your own personal secret, your own personal secret mantra.
Yeah, and that is some nonsense. Can you believe how, sometimes people come to me and say that, how, what guru? No, what we do is, if I am a disciple, I give the mantra to my guru, and my guru gives me back that mantra. Can you believe that's a joke? Okay, there's somebody gives some secret. Okay, that makes sense. But you make your own mantra and you give to guru, and you receive from guru, and that kind of guru and disciple relationship. Look at the height of foolishness. Do you understand what I said?
Mhm. Well,
Yeah,
like, have you heard Maharishi Mahesh Yogi?
I heard he used to visit, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and he was
Lord
another guy that was big with the Beatles at one point as well. But
Yeah.
that was he started TM here in America.
Oh, is he? He's also doing the same business. You're muted. You got muted. Yeah. Is he?
Oh, sorry, I keep muting and unmuting. Yeah, that so he brought transcendental meditation to America, and but it was that's the story with TM is like you buy your mantra from your guru.
Buying is okay. At least he's giving you something nonsense. But now you're giving mantra and you're receiving the mantra. And what can you do if the fools are in this world? Yeah, continue.
Yes. So there were some zoning restrictions. So the devotees were not allowed to use the Berkeley temple as residence. But since there were no suitable rooms available at that point, so the devotees accommodated Prabhupada and his personal staff in the temple only for a few days of his visit. And they were hoping that the authorities wouldn't find out. But on the first night itself at 2 a.m., police came to check. So, and Prabhupada was already up. I mean, he was writing his Bhagavatam translations. So the police knocked out loudly outside the door. So a young Mike who was guarding Prabhupada's room, he opened the door and there were flashlights shown into his face. So and the officer showed his credentials and he said that there are when they are not supposed to be sleeping there in a rough tone. So Mike said that he wasn't sleeping; he was just guarding his spiritual master. So Prabhupada could easily hear the disturbance outside his room, and other devotees who were also spending the night in the building, they came out of their rooms and tried to give reasons with the officers about the special occasion of the spiritual master's visit. And one of the policemen even began to roam around and he was checking in the corners and he was opening the doors. Now, all the devotees in the building, about half a dozen, they were standing with the policemen near the Prabhupada's room. That's it.
Nice. Prasanti, please.
Where's the old man? One of the policemen asked. Bahulaswa, the temple president, requested them not to disturb Srila Prabhupada, but the policeman made no attempt at politeness. They were, in fact, overly nasty. One policeman banged on the window to Prabhupada's room. Don't disturb him, Bahulaswa requested. He is a very elderly man. He is not sleeping. These are the hours in which he writes, and all these men are his personal entourage. They are staying here to help him. We are not violating the rules. Suddenly, one of the policemen opened Prabhupada's door and shone his light in on Prabhupada's face. All three policemen peered in, while Srila Prabhupada looked up at them, concerned yet detached. The policeman shone his flashlight into the corners of Prabhupada's simple, dimly lit room. No one said anything, and after about 10 seconds, they shut the door. The police officers and the devotees continued arguing. The devotees contending that they were not using the building as a residence, the police citing infractions and taking down notes, warning that they would be back. They finally left. The incident has constituted about a half-hour interruption of Prabhupada's work, but as the building became quiet again, Prabhupada continued translating the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam and speaking his purports into the dictating machine. Prabhupada agreed to hold a press conference. He welcomed regular opportunities to address the press because even though their stories were often negative or dwelt on controversies, whatever truth the paper printed generally outweighed the damaging reports. The holy name of Krishna always appeared, and usually there would be mention of Prabhupada's preaching or of Bhagavad Gita. Personal details about Prabhupada were generally not offensive. He no longer expected the press to print much of Krishna conscious philosophy, although occasionally some philosophy appeared. He would often request reporters to please report accurately and not misinterpret or skip over what he had said. The reporters, however, seemed to have a fascination for a trivial. In 1968, a reporter in Montreal had dealt on Prabhupada's casual shoes, hush puppied high priest. Nevertheless, for Prabhupada, press interviews and press conferences were a way of preaching. The press conference was held in the temple and was attended by about a dozen reporters and photographers. Brahmananda Swami had the reporters write their questions on a piece of paper so that one of the devotees could read them to Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked the photographers not to take pictures during the conference since it would divert people's attention. Should, so the policeman came and asked about Prabhupada, and all the devotees requested not to disturb Prabhupada and told that he was a very elderly man and he is working in these hours and he is not sleeping, and they're all his personal entourage. And then they started saying that, but they did not listen, even though they told that they did not violate any rules. They suddenly opened Prabhupada's room and shone their flashlights on Prabhupada's face, and three of them walked in, and they didn't say anything, but they shut the door after 10 seconds. And then the argument continued. They warned the devotees for staying there and sleeping, and then they left. And Prabhupada was interrupted by half an hour, but was back to his work translating Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Prabhupada agreed to hold a press conference. Um, he welcomed the press, but often there were controversies. Instead of giving the Krishna conscious philosophy, they only took like unnecessary things like what shoes he was wearing, and they are not taking the important things but the trivial things, and making a controversy out of it. So Prabhupada asked the reporters not to misinterpret, and not to skip over, but to report accurately. And the press conference was held in the temple, and a dozen reporters and photographers attended. And Prabhupada requested not to take any pictures because it would divert people's attention. And they wrote the questions on a paper so that the devotees can read.
If they came into the building to check if someone is accommodated, generally I don't know if anyone know, the churches or certain the places it's not meant for like offices. No one should be living there. That's the law here. Well, when they come for to look if somebody is living, then why they would ask where the old man? So basically, they know there is someone complained, or it is intentionally they came to disturb. You don't ask for a particular person, right, when you come in. So anyway. Mm. The press conference was held in the temple and was attended by about, Prabhupada said not to take, we read that. Devotee, Srila Prabhupada, would you comment on opposition to the Hare Krishna movement in this country? Prabhupada, why should they oppose? What is the reason? If they are Christian or Jewish religion man, so we are advocating you chant the holy name of God. So why should there be objection? Is there any reason for such objection? What is the objection? Devotee. Some of the objections are that the followers of the Hare Krishna sect are on the streets or in the airports bothering people. Prabhupada, the airport people is a botheration. The airport itself is a botheration. So much sound, so much of accident. So why this little botheration they cannot tolerate? That means intolerance. It is full of botheration, and because we are chanting, they are very much disturbed. We don't chant in the airport, but we ask people that here is a very good book. You will benefit. If you like, you can take. So what is wrong there? Tell me what is the wrong. If I would, if I give you something very nice, is that wrong? You read any book. We have got 50 books, and you find out any fault in that. If we are distributing some bad literature which is against the social welfare, then you can object. But you see, bring all your books here and you will see. Any page you open, you will find something good. Why are you denying to distribute such literature for the benefit of the people in general? What is wrong there? Devotee. One of the things that people say is that the devotees are asking for donation, not just distributing books, but asking for money. That's the bother. Prabhupada, but he pays. If he feels botheration, why does he pay? The one who feels botheration does not pay, but one who thinks that there's a nice book, here's a nice book, then he says, all right, let me take it. Why you take this botheration? If it is botheration, why they are purchasing? They are paying their money, hard-earned money. Do you think they are bothered and at the same time they pay? Prabhupada's sensible remarks made the reporters laugh. Now they began questioning him directly. Reporter, what will happen to the moment in the United States when you die? Prabhupada, I will never die. Devotee Jai Haribo. Prabhupada, I shall live from my books and you will utilize. Reporter, why does the Hare Krishna movement not engage in social protest? Prabhupada, we are the best social workers. People are fools and rascals, and we are teaching them nice idea of God consciousness. We're the best social workers. We will stop all crimes. What is your social work? Producing hippies and criminals? That's not social work. Social work means the population must be very peaceful, wise, intelligent, God conscious, first class man. That is social work. If you produce some fourth class, fifth class, 10th class of man, what is social work? You are not producing that. You are not producing that. We are not producing that. Just see, he is a first class man. They do not have any bad habit, illicit intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. They're all young men. They're not addicted to all these things. This is social work. Mm. So, okay, here we did, right? Okay, press conference was held and attended by about a dozen reporters and photographers. Brahmanand Swami had the reporters write their questions on a piece of paper, so devotees could read to them. So it is kind of a conversation between devotee and Prabhupada. So reporters were getting that question answered. That's a nice way of doing. So the question is, why would you comment on opposition on to the Hare Krishna movement in this country? Prabhupada is very bold. Well, what is the cause of opposition? What we are doing? What is the reason for opposition? If they are religious men, Christian and Jewish, and we are asking them to chant the name of God, it can be their own name. Why there should be such objections? Now, then next comes is that okay, that followers of Hare Krishna are sects in the streets and or in the airports bothering people. Purpose already there's botheration in the airport. So much of tons of people and disturbance, sound, loud noise. So many things are happening, and people are selling so many literatures also is being sold. And what we are doing, we are giving um, some books, some books. We have 50 books. We are giving something good to people. Is something wrong? Is it something wrong? Is it disturbance to give something good to the people? What is wrong there? So devotee says, no, okay, giving is one thing, asking for donation, not just for is the botheration. So Prabhupada said, why bother? If they're bothered, why they would give? So if they are bothered, they won't pay, right? They're paying with the money because it means they are liking it. So here's the good book, and they're paying their hard-earned money. You think they're bothered at the same time they pay? So all the reporters seems like and laughed. They started questioning directly. What will happen to your movement after today? Because I'm not going to die. I'm going to live with my teachings and within my books. It's a very difficult to conceive, right? For people, they think it's ordinary man. So why does Hare Krishna movement does not engage in social protest? We are the greatest social workers. What kind of social workers? People are fools and rascals, and we are giving them, teaching them a nice idea of God consciousness. We are the best. We are making them first-class man. If the social work is making hippies and criminals, that's not the work we do. We create first-class men. Our men look at this, they don't know, they follow the regulatory principles, they're not addicted to anything. This is the social work. So this is the best humanitarian work Prabhupada gave, explained very nice. What should you do? Should we do our reflections or should we read? We have 5 more minutes, 6 minutes. Let's have reflections. I would like to see. So we begin today's reading with Philadelphia, right? Dr. Patel. Ravindra Sarpro brings Dr. Patel, a professor of Hindu philosophy, Hindu teacher, is impersonalist, and Buddhism is teaching. And there's a heated discussion, conversation between Prabhupada and him. He said, "You're teaching what is Hindu religion?" He said, "I don't know. You tell me." So I said, "You don't know. You're teaching. You don't know." So there's a heated discussion. He was forcing Prabhupada to explain. Prabhupada said, "You don't get the knowledge like that. You must submit first. It's not that you can buy. Spiritual master is not your servant." So this heated conversation happened, and he finally left. And Ravindra Sarpro said, "Sorry for this. This we read before you all joined." Okay, who else can share some more? Key points.
In the last portion you read, I like this point, like where people are like, "Oh, they're a nuisance at the airport." Like everything about the airport is a nuisance already, right? Like it's loud, it's busy, it's and to say that that the devotees there chanting is a bother is insane, because the whole experience is a bother to begin with.
And he gave a nice thing. We are creating first-class people here. What is the problem? Why there should be objection to people? See, anything good you do in this world is opposition, objection. And you bad you do, no, I don't care. Interesting word. Yes. Anything else?
Prabhupada clarifies the position of a spiritual master, that a guru should only repeat the message what Krishna has said, not other than that.
Right. That's a very nice Prabhupada explained. What is the exact statement he said? Guru is the one who is a nice statement he made. Guru is the one who advocates. No, not advocates. It's some other statement. Anyone remembers? Exact. It's a very nice statement he made. Repeats. Was it repeats? No, not repeats. I don't know what, but it's a nice statement on Guru actually. Oh, Amaragya. He gives the explanation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's statement. You know what is Amaragya Hoy Guru?
So he says Guru means he who is carrying out the orders of Sri Chaitanya
Very nice,
Mahaprabhu,
very nice.
not
Amaragya.
a self-made Guru.
See, Siddhari, your husband is smart, and you also smart. Both of you are smart. Everybody is smart. Everybody is intelligent. Very nice. The Guru is the one who carries out the order of the God. Isn't it a very simple and clear definition? Where else in this world we can find this kind of definition? Everything is defined nicely, clearly. Yes. And the incident at Berkeley, police comes and disturbs unnecessarily. Okay, what else?
And the conversation with the flight supervisor, he was
That's
questioning.
very beautiful. That's very beautiful one. Yesterday I had a class in the morning. I was explaining, one devotee was asking, you know, and in spiritual consciousness, you say everybody is same and equal, all are part and parcel of Krishna. So the devotee was asking, you know, how you see and good and bad people, as giving example of Yudhishthira and Duryodhana. But in a self-realized soul, that's not the difference. For them, they all will see in equal vision. They don't, because they see everything is helping in Krishna's pastimes. So here in Prabhupada's conversation, explanation of definition on evil, explains how for Krishna it doesn't matter. Both evil and good are same. For Krishna, both not different, front and back, that's it. For us, we feel that because we are under the duality of good and bad. Thank you for reminding that. Yes. And who else? What else? This is a very beautiful point. I feel like we read again after we finish this. Because, you know, because why? These are real conversations we can apply in our practices and in our explaining to others. Okay, any other point? Today, Prasad, Nipa is not there. I hope she's well. Sakyavam said he's busy actually. Any other comments? Everyone doing well? This starting tomorrow is very auspicious month is beginning. It's called Purushottam month. Please continue. We are also planning to send devotees come, or 2-3 devotees will come to different houses, and in this 1.5 month up to Kartik, we'll do half an hour kirtan and read one and just come back like that. Just help, you know, a chanting program at home, just to purify the house by Sankirtan. So we are planning 2 or 3 devotees will come from temple and perform. Anyone would like to, I think everybody should do it, not like, we'll just come and take, no need to cook. We just can take fruits as a prasadam, can bring it. Just wanted to share with all of you. So you can have 4 or 5 people or two families join, and 3 from the temple. We'll do half an hour kirtan and come. Does it sound good? Is it exciting or no? Okay. Very nice. Thank you so much. We will continue tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.